Welcome. I'm Lee Cowan, and this is Here Comes the Sun, a closer look at some of the people, places, and things we bring you every weekend on Sunday morning. Basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, perhaps as well known for speaking his mind as he is for his skyhook, has taken to sharing his thoughts via the online platform Substack lately, even, as he told Jim Axelrod, if that means being critical of himself, too.
Doing what he can do now is a natural extension of how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has always lived his life. Critical race theory, presidential politics, toxic masculinity. He's taking it all on, often with uncommon candor.
LeBron said we don't have a relationship, and he's right. And for that, I blame myself. Not for anything I did, but perhaps for not making more of an effort to reach out to him.
Take his post on his relationship with LeBron James, who broke his scoring record.
So this mission statement you have, call it like I see it, applies to you as well.
Has to.
Later in the show, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar shares how another boundary-breaking African-American athlete encouraged him to attend UCLA.
There must have been something about this campus, though, that felt safe.
There was a lot about this campus that felt safe, just that people out here seemed to be willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. And if you failed, you failed, but it seemed different here. And I really appreciated that. I got a letter from Jackie Robinson saying that if I went to UCLA, I would probably have a good experience.
That must have been unbelievably meaningful.
For a Brooklyn Dodger fan, that more or less, that sealed it.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is no stranger to the movies. He had a memorable cameo in the acclaimed 1980 comedy Airplane. And so, our Ben Mankiewicz explores an elite category of film, the Hollywood blockbuster, and how a movie earns that moniker.
There's Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones, Oppenheimer.
I don't know if we can be trusted.
They all fit the definition of a big-budget, mass-marketed movie designed to make big money at the box office and beyond.
That's all coming up right here on Here Comes the Sun. He's never been afraid to take tough shots on or off the court. As he told our Jim Axelrod, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar calls it like he sees it.
A visit to Pauley Pavilion, where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar led his UCLA Bruins to 3 straight national championships,
I'm very proud of what I did here.
is full of good memories.
So you had one loss on this court in 3 years.
Right.
It's a crazy record.
Well, it's the best we could do.
His pro career,
Lob under to Kareem, slam dunk!
6 championships, 19 times an All-Star, and the all-time leading scorer when he retired in 1989, provides plenty to savor as well. But he'll leave it to others to consider his career.
Does any part of you think about your place in the game of basketball?
I have thought about it, but it's over. It's done.
At the age of 76, Abdul-Jabbar's got other things to think about, which he's sharing on Substack.
You've got a wide range of interests you're writing about on the Substack.
Yep. And just gravitating to things that intrigue me.
Substack, an online platform where writers, critics, journalists post their thoughts for readers who subscribe.
With a single petulant blow, he advocated violence, diminished women, insulted the entertainment industry, and perpetuated stereotypes about the black community.
Take his post on Will Smith after the Oscar slap of Chris Rock.
That's critical.
It is. But he took the wrong step.
Were you thinking this is fair, but harsh?
Yeah. Well, slapping somebody in the face on national TV is harsh.
And this is the lane where you want to be as a social critic.
Yeah, there are times when you don't have any choice but to speak the truth.
Speaking his truth has always been a guiding principle for Abdul-Jabbar.
It feels like the Substack writing is an extension of what started when you were 15, 16, 17-year-old young man.
Absolutely.
Born in New York City, he was still known as Lou Alcindor as he learned the game on these courts in northern Manhattan.
By 14, I was 6'10". I crept up to 7 feet in the next year or so.
But more than his game developed here, so did his worldview.
How did New York shape you?
What I learned about black pride and black history would not have happened if I wasn't raised here in New York. Had my roots in Harlem.
In the summer of 1964, a young black man named James Powell was shot dead by a police officer, and Harlem burned.
Those race riots made me aware of the anger in the black community.
Abdul-Jabbar chose UCLA mostly for its legendary coach, John Wooden, but the school's history of pioneering black athletes also beckoned.
Did you feel you were taking your place in a line of black athletes that had come to UCLA?
Definitely. Jackie Robinson, baseball. Kenny Washington, football. Arthur Ashe, tennis. Integrated sports in America.
At 20, he joined America's best-known black athletes to support Muhammad Ali's refusal to serve in Vietnam to protest racial injustice at home.
Did you feel like a kid then?
I felt like I was going to have to become a man in those moments.
He'd meet the moment the next year during the 1968 Olympics, while others made statements on the medal stand in Mexico City. Abdul-Jabbar made his by staying home.
You chose not to play.
Yes, I did.
Why?
I did not want to be part of showing the world a false image of America. And it was a very easy choice to make.
Easy choice. Was there a price to pay?
I didn't have any money at the time. There was nothing they could take from me. Certain things are worth more than anything that you can put a monetary value on.
You feel like if you go and play basketball for the USA in 1968, it's almost like you become a front man representing a country that was not fulfilling its promise to all of its citizens at home.
Right. Representing a country that Jim Crow was still alive and well in. That bothered me. So I did what I could do.
Doing what he can do now is a natural extension of how Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has always lived his life. Critical race theory, presidential politics, toxic masculinity. He's taking it all on, often with uncommon candor.
LeBron said we don't have a relationship, and he's right. And for that, I blame myself. Not for anything I did, but perhaps for not making more of an effort to reach out to him.
Take his post on his relationship with LeBron James, who broke his scoring record.
So this mission statement you have, call it like I see it, applies to you as well.
Has to. I can't give myself an out, expect everybody else to toe the line.
So many other people do.
Well, I'm not them.
But the man sports writers labeled sullen wants to keep it light when possible.
You're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
After all, this is the guy who made that cameo in Airplane.
Listen, kid, I'm out there busting my buns every night.
I'm out there busting my buns every night. Now I'm out there busting my buns on Substack. Humor's important to you.
We can't be so serious that we can't smile about our shortcomings.
Shortcomings. His, ours, the culture's. A Hall of Famer in one arena is trying to make his mark in another.
Does it come with any dissonance? Why do I want to do this? Or this is exactly what I want to do?
Well, I think I'm at this point in my life, and this is exactly what I have to do.
Call it like you see it.
I have to call it like I see it, speaking the truth. Got to do that.
Up next, an exclusive excerpt from our chat with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, something you can only see right here on CBS News Streaming. Stay with us.
I remember standing on Bruin Walk. Just a silent demonstration, but it had to do with the assassination of Dr. King.
As promised, here's more from Jim Axelrod and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I was struck. I went back and was reading something out of Coach Wooden and Me, one of the books he wrote. And there's a quote. You say, "My development as a basketball player paralleled my evolution as a social activist." And that was while you were here.
Yeah, it was.
But all the headlines and the attention was about you as your evolution as a basketball player.
Right.
The social activist part, that really wasn't something that was attached to your identity when you first arrived, was it?
No, it wasn't. And that was a very delicate subject. It's still a delicate subject, not so much so. And a lot of people in those days just felt it was better not to speak about it because it was too difficult to fathom and work out. We can't come to a final solution on all of that.
Were you aware of that pressure to, I mean, it's almost like early days of shut up and dribble.
Yeah, but I was beginning to see that it was going to happen in incremental steps. So I was more concerned with seeing people become aware of what it was all about and, hoping to get their support in finding a way to change it.
There must have been something about this campus, though, that felt safe.
There was a lot about this campus that felt safe, just that people out here seemed to be willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. And if you failed, you failed, but it seemed different here. And I really appreciated that. I got a letter from Jackie Robinson saying that if I went to UCLA, I would probably have a good experience.
That must have been unbelievably meaningful.
For a Brooklyn Dodger fan, that more or less, that sealed it, man. When I came out here for my visit, I was thinking about saying, I'll just stay until school starts in the fall.
Who wants to leave this? As you settled into life here, at what point did you start to become aware of your capacity to be valued as much for what you could do with your body as what you could do with your mind?
I was very appreciative of how black athletes had been treated here at UCLA. I was aware of it. And then I started to be mentored by Dr. Harry Edwards, who knew that the Olympics was coming and that people were going to get the wrong impression of life in America for black athletes just because of the great sales job that had been made saying that things in the U.S. were on their way to being okay, and they weren't necessarily.
So even in 65, 66, 67, leading up to 1968, you're 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
And you knew at some point, even as young as you were, you might have to make a decision that was going to cause some controversy.
Yeah, I did. But I remember standing on Bruin Walk. We just a silent demonstration, but it had to do with the assassination of Dr. King. That was a very important moment. And people passed and said, they would stop and tell me, hey, you're going to be playing in the NBA. What do you have to complain about? And what you said about the beginning of the shut up and dribble attitude, that's where I started to see it.
Are you optimistic?
Of course I'm optimistic. We've gotten this far.
I mean, you say, of course. I know a lot of people who think we're on the downside of the mountain.
We might be, but I don't have time to indulge that.
If someone is reading a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Substack post, are they going to look at that post and feel like, well, he's coming from a certain political perspective?
They might, yeah.
What's that perspective?
The perspective of someone who wants to see freedom, justice, and equality for all Americans. That's what that is.
Sometimes it feels like as a culture we get bogged down. Oh, he's from the left. Oh, he's on the right. And you just gave a sort of pithy, meaningful description that has nothing to do with the left or the right.
No, it can't. We all have our choices to make and should have the freedom to make those choices, but too many people get caught up in why. You didn't do it for the right reasons. My reasons are X, Y, and Z. We can go back and forth like that forever.
But that won't move us forward.
We got to move forward, yeah, absolutely.
Up next, get the popcorn ready as we discuss some of the greatest films of all time. Welcome back. Hollywood has been turning out so-called blockbusters since the industry's golden age, starting way back in the 1920s. But what is it about a film that makes it a bona fide blockbuster? Ben Mankiewicz explains.
They may be the most famous two notes in Hollywood history. Directed by Steven Spielberg, just 26 years old, Jaws surfaced in the summer of 1975. John Williams' theme and those teeth scared families out of the water and into movie theaters, becoming the blueprint for the modern blockbuster.
The way that shot is framed now, it's so clear now what it's for. Like,
even expecting it
I know.
is such a shock.
Dana Stevens is a film critic for Slate.
I was a kid when Jaws came out, but I remember that in prime time every night there'd be, these scary trailers for Jaws on TV. And so by the time it opened in the summer of '75, people were hyped.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
it was a blockbuster about summer, set in summer, about things that we totally associate with summer.
That was a big part of it too, right?
34 years after Jaws, Avatar redefined the blockbuster. So far, it's earned $3 billion at the box office.
The blockbuster has been good to Stephen Lang.
Yes, it has. I'm very fortunate.
A prolific character actor, Stephen Lang played the villain, Miles Quaritch.
I need to know how to force their cooperation or hammer them hard if they won't.
In Avatar, Hollywood's biggest moneymaker ever.
It widened the array of choices that I had. Look, one time they asked Robert Mitchum and said, well, how do you choose your roles? And he said, well, I read what's offered and accept the least embarrassing.
The formula established by Jaws, then exceeded by Avatar, is in theaters. There's Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones, Oppenheimer.
I don't know if we can be trusted.
They all fit the definition of a big-budget, mass-marketed movie designed to make big money at the box office and beyond.
The truth is, the blockbuster is a concept, an idea, a strategy that Hollywood had been using for quite a few decades before 1975, when Jaws was released.
Charles Ackland chronicles this cinematic business model in his book, American Blockbuster.
In broad daylight, mighty squadrons roar across the North Sea.
The term's origin story is no Hollywood tale. It came from the American military, the name of a devastating World War II bomb.
The blockbuster was initially the highest capacity explosive that had ever been used in warfare.
And here is the 1943 U.S. model blockbuster.
There was very, very high public awareness of what this was.
Movie studios repurposed the word in the late 1940s and 50s, first as a way to sell films to theaters, later to lure audiences back from TV by promoting grand epics, often on a biblical scale. In 1959, the New York Times used the word blockbuster in its review of Ben-Hur. Of course, not all these epics succeed. There's 1963's Cleopatra.
Who directed Cleopatra? It escapes me.
Spoiler alert, it was my great-uncle, Joe Mankiewicz. 12 years later, Jaws rewrote the rules. For every big-budget blockbuster, there are nearly as many big-budget bombs. John Carter, The Lone Ranger, The Adventures of Pluto Nash, and famously, Ishtar.
There's a great affection for Ishtar now, in part because of how poorly received it was at the time and how quickly it became just this joke.
Meanwhile, far less expensive sleepers hit the jackpot. Nobody could put Dirty Dancing in a corner. Released in the summer of 1987, it cost roughly $6 million to produce and returned more than $200 million.
This falls really into that niche about the women's movie, a movie that focuses on a female character and her world that isn't sci-fi, adventure, doesn't have any violence in it, and has massive, massive appeal.
Cold shower, falling off my roof, and my heels are on the ground.
Flat feet!
Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig, similarly focused on a female character. Author Charles Ackland believes the movie will sell much more than tickets.
What we are talking about here are these really gigantic investment opportunities. In the case of Mattel, reintroducing Barbie as a particular item of relevance to many different audiences.
For Stephen Lang, the key to turning a big-budget film into a blockbuster comes down to a single word: story.
I think as a rule, it's good to have a very simple narrative. Take E.T. I would characterize E.T. as a blockbuster, although, it doesn't have the huge scale. But what it does have, it's got the cutest alien ever created. And the storyline is pretty simple. I'm here, I'm stuck, and I want to go home.
The fact is, what matters to movie lovers isn't the take at the box office, but what we take away from the film.
You just don't want to leech the art out of Hollywood. Think of the films that have come out of there, They've been extraordinary, and they can't be just replaced by, comic book characters and just huge stunt films, from end to end.
Everybody who goes to the movies wants to either laugh or cry, to experience intense emotions.
People want to see something move, and they want to be moved.
Right,
Something that
moved
really...
in both senses.
Right.
Moving on screen and moving something inside you.
I'm Lee Cowan. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right here next time on Here Comes the Sun.